What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers take on the Cleveland Browns tonight at First Energy Stadium in a game that should be rainy. It should be cold. It should be windy. It's on the lake. And let me tell you, I was picking out my outfit to go to Cleveland in, and I pulled out the pea coat. And I said, oh, it's getting cold outside. This is nice. You know, we can look classy. And then I realized it's rainy. It's cold. It's windy. It's on the lake. It's Thursday night. And I'm sorry, but I cannot disrespect an old school badass beatdown in the AFC North. And that's what this will be, is an old school badass showdown between two teams that, well, they wouldn't wear peacoats. They'd wear flannels and probably construction outfits because the NFL is weird. And that is what we are. And that is what the Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns will bring tonight, most likely. So with that said, it's not nice here, but I'm still feeling good. Hope you're doing the same. How you feeling, my friend?
Yeah, you can't take a peacoat to a place where people are chugging beer with egg in it. You can't take a peacoat to that. You got to know the attire has to be basically a 1990s suede, like not suede, but waterproof jacket that has the old Steelers logo on it. That is attire for tomorrow or for tonight's game. So
yes,
yeah, good thing you didn't take the peacoat because I would have definitely held that against you.
Yeah, and look at it. I agree. I almost held it against myself. For those of you who don't know about the beer thing and the egg thing, last year at the Cleveland Browns game, me and shout out Stephen Thompson watched a man crack an egg, brought an egg into the stadium, which that's just too much. Cracked it, put it right in his beer, chugged the beer. I was like, dude, it's like 11 a.m., pal. What are you doing? Real men need protein in their beers. That's what I learned in Cleveland last year. Would never try that in my life. Shout out the guy. He had a cool hat. He had a cool Notre Dame lacrosse hat. Besides that, don't know if I was a fan of him. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns, Week 12, a game that many will say trap game. We've talked about that, as well as maybe this isn't a trap game because Myles Garrett's talking smack and TJ Watt's got to be pissed off and Jameis Winston doesn't seem like a trap game quarterback, and a million other reasons why maybe this one goes in the Pittsburgh Steelers way, while there are arguments to be made that maybe this one goes in the Cleveland Browns way. We're diving into Justin Fields and why one ESPN insider believes that he could end up in the NFC next season. Big Ben's got some words on the Cleveland Browns, and you got to love when Ben talks Cleveland Browns because me and him are almost the same. You know, like you just can't help yourself sometimes. I don't know if it's just where I grew up, if that's just what it was. If I don't know. Maybe I'm just that guy. I'm always sarcastic. For those of you who know the Robert Spillane story, you know that sometimes it gets me into trouble. For those of you who don't know the Robert Spillane story, I'm sorry, but you'll never know. You'll never know. And then can the Pittsburgh Steelers make a pretty big move on the offensive line if this game does not go as planned with their offense? Plus, we're diving into what's more likely and our picks for Week 12, Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns. We will start off with the one and the only Big Ben Roethlisberger, who on his podcast talked the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens, bunch of other things, including why he doesn't feel the interception that Russell Wilson threw against the Ravens was on Russell Wilson. You could have your own thoughts there, but then started talking about preparing for the Baltimore Ravens, even though the Pittsburgh Steelers have the Baltimore Ravens number. And he said, quote, you still have to. You're still going into it. It's not like you're playing Cleveland, right? A quick pause and then said, did I say that out loud? Classic Ben Roethlisberger. So I'll ask this. At what point, if ever, can Ben stop with the clowning, the jabs, the shots at Cleveland? Or is he like truly able to do this forever without it ever becoming anything other than hilarious?
I mean, he has the most wins by any quarterback in that stadium?
Yes.
Ever.
Ever.
So I don't. The limit does not exist. He can continue to clown them until the cows come home because he went in there and he dominated year after year after year after year. And guess what? He's from Ohio. He's from the Cleveland area. So that is the reason that he's going to continue to do it. And he has every right to, because he has dominated in that stadium ever since he stepped foot on the grass there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's from Ohio. The Cleveland Browns passed on him. He ended up in Pittsburgh, which is the last place the Cleveland Browns wanted him to be. Turned into a future Hall of Famer, top 3, maybe top 4 quarterback of his generation, in a generation that included the greatest quarterback of all time. I mean, that ain't bad. Maybe 2 in the top 5, if you, depending on where you put Peyton Manning. That's not a bad place to be for Ben Roethlisberger. I agree with you. He could do it forever. I'll do it forever. He could do it forever. I just feel that's fair there, and he's done much more against the city of Cleveland. I almost said for the city of Cleveland, against the city of Cleveland, than I will ever do. All I'll do is make fun of them till the cows come home and talk about how they do gross things like pour eggs into beer, which is, just no need for anything like that. But you got to love the rivalry when it heats up and Big Ben gets a little slap in there. And I agree that he could do this for the rest of time because, well, quite frankly, he owns the Cleveland Browns. And you know how Aaron Rodgers said, "I own you" to the Chicago Bears? Ben should have had an opportunity to do so. Instead, he's taking a slow, sweet time, constantly reminding everybody in the orange and brown that number 7, well, he's the most winning quarterback in your stadium ever. And that's as bad. It's as bad as it gets. Let's dive into Justin Fields real fast, as ESPN's Dan Graziano has some interesting thoughts on where he and possibly Russell Wilson can end up in 2025. The New York Giants benched Daniel Jones. They turned to Tommy DeVito, as we honor our Italian DeVito quarterback there. And really, I think they did it simply so that they could get some publicity with his agent, and that is a genius marketing move. I'm all about that life. What comes next? Because Daniel Jones is done. His time in New York is over. We talked yesterday about how he's a possible landing spot option, I guess, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, maybe it's flipped. Maybe it goes both ways. Maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers land Daniel Jones, and maybe the New York Giants land Justin Fields and or Russell Wilson, who, again, ESPN's Dan Graziano names as options, top options possibly, for the New York Giants in 2025. I'll say this. We addressed it yesterday, and we recorded this before we addressed it yesterday, but I imagine that I go on one lengthy rant about how the Pittsburgh Steelers would not sign Daniel Jones over Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. And I don't think Justin Fields wants to necessarily go to New York or Russell Wilson. I don't think Russell Wilson's even an option, although he was considered a candidate in New York. He visited the Giants before he ended up in Pittsburgh. I would put the Giants in my top 3 spots I'd like Justin Fields to end up, though. And I think that the Steelers are most likely going to move on from Justin Fields after this season. So why not go to a team that I think has some potential? You could go to a Giants team that has a good head coach, that has a developing offensive line that is pretty bad, but has pieces that you hope turn into something. A wide receiver that is a top 5 draft pick, and a defense that is certainly growing. I think that the pieces are there. I'd put the other 2 teams that potentially need a quarterback as the Raiders, because I think he'd be good in Vegas, and I think Vegas needs a quarterback. I think they're much better than their quarterbackless team says they are. And as bad as this one is, my friend, as much as people are going to hate me for this one, and this is perfect personal preference, I don't want to deal with Justin Fields going to this team. Pro Justin Fields in his career, I'll name this team the Cleveland Browns. They're going to be looking for a quarterback. Maybe they draft one. Maybe they go, Justin Fields didn't look bad when he was running against us on Thursday night. He didn't look terrible when he was doing that. So maybe we go out and get him. But I think the Giants might be close to the top of the list for me in terms of where Justin Fields could land. Does it fit? Is that a team? Where's the bar for you? I guess that's a good question here is where's the bar for you of what you're looking for Justin Fields next season? Because I think everybody wants him to succeed, but they also just want him to get an opportunity. And I think there's a fine line between you're getting an opportunity, but you're screwed, and you're getting an opportunity that maybe isn't the easiest, but you can succeed here.
Let's not mince words. Pittsburgh was the best opportunity that Justin Fields could have ever gotten. The only problem was Russell Wilson's here. So I don't think he's going to touch anything close to that. Cleveland probably is the closest because you have a baked in run game scheme that they have history with. You have a good defense and you have some playmakers on the outside. I like David Njoku specifically as a tight end. So that's probably the best option. I would say New York's probably number 2 because he fits what Brian Daboll was able to do up in Buffalo with Josh Allen, and you get Malik Neighbors plus a very good pass rush on the defensive side of the football. But outside of that, you're not going anywhere that's going to set you up well. You're going somewhere that needs a starting quarterback. And typically those teams are missing other pieces as well, right? They're not going to be a team that has made the playoffs the year before and just happened to need a quarterback to put it all together. Those teams don't grow on trees. Those teams don't exist very, very often. So the bar has to just be wherever there's an option available, because if Justin Fields wants to start, he's going to get opportunities. They're just not going to be as good of an opportunity as Pittsburgh was, coming in with a top 5 defense, with an offensive line that is ready to go, albeit young, and with a running game that can really help you move forward and take a lot of pressure off a young quarterback's shoulders. I don't think that exists very much in the NFL, and I think the closest you're going to get is Cleveland or New York, as you mentioned. But outside of that, I mean, the bar is simply what's available to Justin Fields, because that's what he's going to have to choose from. He's not going to get to pick and choose like he did last year when the Steelers miraculously decided we're going to start from scratch in our quarterback room.
Yeah, you're spot on. Now, will Steelers fans hate him?
If you go to
Cleveland,
yes.
If you go to Cleveland, how quickly, how intensely does he become an enemy to the Pittsburgh? Like, he's a villain. But after one season in the situation that he's in, does he get any leeway?
No, I don't think he does. If he goes to Cleveland, there's still going to be people like me that are going to be like, all right, well, I mean, I hope he does well, but not that well, right? Like, that's what a lot of Steelers fans that like Justin Fields are going to say. But the majority of them, and when I say majority, I mean probably 90 to 92% are going to be like,
majority.
How could you do that? Like, how should you go anywhere but there? Like, I'm sure fans would have rather him go to Baltimore or Cincinnati than go to Cleveland.
Maybe.
Well, if he goes to Baltimore, at least he's not playing.
Yeah, I get that one. But at least in Cleveland, like, they're still the Browns at the end of the day, and they'll be the Browns. They've always been the Browns, pal. They've always been the Browns. The Steelers have been the Steelers. The Steelers have Steelered themselves sometimes against the Browns. Let's not act like that but the Browns have always been and always will be the Browns. They've always have been, will be the Browns. And I would hate, that is where quarterbacks go to die. And I would hate for Justin Fields to get caught into that, but I agree with you. It is their best shot. Now, a team that, you could respect him going to, the Giants, I think, might top my list. So I'm all about it, but they are going to go after a rookie quarterback, and they're probably going to land one because their record is going to be that bad. That's my conspiracy theory for why they start Tommy DeVito over Drew Lock, is that they are trying desperately to lose every single game from here until the end of the season so that they could get the first, if not the second pick in the NFL draft.
When you're competing with the Carolina Panthers, you have to do something drastic.
and the Raiders at this point, and the Titans. The Titans aren't even coming within 30 points of victories, let alone trying to get the third pick in the draft. It's a bad time at the bottom of the NFL. It is, and the Cleveland Browns. Let's not act like the Cleveland Browns are not right there, possibly with the first pick in the draft by the end of the season. Let's go to number 3 here on my list. Mark Kaboly floated out, I don't know, I don't want to say the idea, but really just the thought, got the brains turning on the possibility that Broderick Jones could be benched. What's it going to take? Where do they go from there? Would they even consider benching Broderick Jones? There's been no indication from Mike Tomlin or anybody else that they're going to consider benching Broderick Jones, but you got to ask yourself, at what point is a line drawn, and do you just test something out because who cares about the rest of it? Like, you're not holding Broderick Jones anymore to say, hey, we got to keep his confidence high. Who cares? Who cares about his confidence? It can't be there because he's not playing well. So I don't know what's going on. He's already been benched once this season. So it's not like they cared about it then. Why would they care about it now? If Broderick Jones does not have a game against the Cleveland Browns and continues to play much like he's played the rest of the season, your percentage on what the chances are that he could potentially be benched for a guy like Spencer Anderson in week 13 against the Cincinnati Bengals?
I'm still at 0%. I still don't think there's a chance that they end up pulling that shoot. Spencer Anderson hasn't played tackle all season long. He's been playing guard. So are you automatically in week 13 going to switch him outside and say, yeah, we're going to have you play right tackle? No, I don't see that happen. And I certainly don't see him getting benched in favor of Calvin Anderson. I mean, he is batting a perfect 1,000, one play and one sack allowed. Like that's who you have behind Broderick Jones right now. Would it be great to have Troy Fautanu? Yeah, it would be, but you don't have that, and you're not going to move out Spencer Anderson. So I put that at 0%. I get it. He's playing bad, and he's certainly got a lot of flags called on him last week. That's been a problem all year long, but the Steelers don't have any other choices right now, and that's due to injuries, because if Troy would have been a non-factor, maybe you do have Spencer Anderson playing a little bit more tackle through training camp and through the early portions of the season, but he hasn't been. He's been at guard. He's been filling in for Isaac Seumalo, filling in for James Daniels, filling in before Mason McCormick eventually supplanted him, a 4th-round rookie. So I don't think that the guy that lost out to a 4th-round rookie is going to beat out your 1st-round, 2nd-year guy in Broderick Jones. I just don't see that happening at this stage of the season.
All right, so I agree with you 100%. I will not put Broderick Jones and his play currently in the same category as 4th-round pick Mason McCormick, because Mason McCormick's a stud right now.
No, but I mean,
Broderick is not.
I was more comparing Mason McCormick being supplanted by Spencer Anderson to saying, okay, now that guy, Spencer Anderson, who lost that job, he's going to go in over Broderick now. Like, I just don't see that.
I agree. I think you're back against the wall. You got nowhere to go at this point. That's where the Steelers are. I would have tested out Dylan Cook and said, screw it. Maybe you got something in this guy. The Steelers liked him last season, but I agree with you. I don't think that there's much of an opportunity there for anybody, but at some point you got to consider it. And I think at some point when the Steelers lose, if they lose, that's when that consideration becomes like a real thing. Until then, it's, well, we're still winning. We're developing and winning at the same time. That's okay. Once you lose, it's, we're developing and we're losing, and that's not where we need to be, because we have a clear issue here and we need to fix that issue. And I think that becomes apparent. I wouldn't say it's 0, but I do think it's very close to 0. And I mean, does Broderick's struggles change your mind about how far the Steelers can go?
No, you can always hide a bad offensive lineman. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but you can hide a bad offensive lineman. There's a guy named Darnell Washington that is typically right on the right hip of Broderick Jones, and that helps out in a lot of situations. You can never fully hide that guy, but you can also limit the damage that he can cause on the offense.
What if that damage is penalties?
That's a little bit of a different question, but also at the same time, like, you got to live with it. You got to live with it. That's where you're at. Like you said, it back against the wall. What are your other options? You just have to live with the fact that every once in a while he gets a little grabby, and he ends up getting the flags called him more often than not.
I was going to say once in a while has become
twice a game.
Multiple, at least twice a game at this point, and most times in crucial situations, which is not good for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's why I don't put it at 0, is because at some point, if he loses them a game, which is a possibility, I mean, you got to do something. Like, you can't just go into the next week and be like, well, you know what, whatever, man. Like, he's still developing. He's young. Mike Tomlin loves to bring that up. He's younger than all the rookies. Yeah, he's still got a year of NFL experience in him. And if this was a quarterback, if this was a different situation, you wouldn't have that same thought. You would have the mindset of, well, he's just not playing well enough. You got to make a change. And I think that's at some point where you got to put this with Broderick. I like Broderick. I think he's got a boatload of talent, and I think he could be something special for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But you you have to draw a line. I don't think that line is drawn yet. I don't think the Steelers even know where it is. He loses them a game, that line is immediately right there. That's where they are. I wouldn't put it at 0. I have a hard time believing the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to lose a game against Cleveland because of Broderick Jones, but anything could happen. And if it does, I mean, at that point, I would agree with you. That's the only time that I'm talking about it. Everything besides that, I think it's a non-factor where we stand currently. All right. We're diving into it's Thursday. We're diving into what's more likely and our picks. Very excited for both of them. And we got one question. I know this is pre-recorded. I know that we couldn't go live today because I'm traveling through the thickness of both Pittsburgh and Cleveland, because it goes, this is what's supposed to happen. I hope by the time I get there, you guys will be getting a live view from the parking lot, but it's supposed to go snow in Pittsburgh. As you drive, it just transitions into rain and nastiness in Cleveland. And then you're there. So smooth 2-hour drive, smooth 2-hour drive. Just
by the time you're in Youngstown, you're going to be driving on a hockey rink is what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time. That's why, you just play it by ear and you figure it out one day at a time. That's what I've learned in this business. I've watched games from motels. Shout out to Super 8. And, you just drive. This is what happens when I wonder what it's like to cover like the Miami Dolphins and be like, yeah, well, you know what? It's still 75 and sunny, or anybody on the West Coast, just being like, oh, I have to drive from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Like, I'm sure that's terrible, but rats, like, let me put this window down. It's a little warm in this car. Meanwhile, you're just like, all right, there we go. Got the chains on the tire and we're driving. Yeah, it's a good time. Shout out. We'll dive into what's more likely and picks for Week 12, Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns. But first, we got a word from our boys over at Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. See all of your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. And for any that you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them with just a few taps. Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a clear view of your expenses across all accounts, easily creates a personalized budget with custom categories to help keep your spending on track, and sees your monthly spending trends in each category to know exactly where your money is going. Get alerts if your bills increase in price, there's unusual spending activity, or if you're close to going over your budget. And the new goals feature automatically saves money for you without you even having to think about it. Whether your goal is to pay off your credit card debt, put away money for a house, or just build your savings, Rocket Money makes it easy. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you, sometimes up to 20%. They automatically scan your bills to find opportunities to save. Then you can ask them to negotiate for you. They'll deal with customer service. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions. They could save members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/allsteelers. That's rocketmoney.com/allsteelers. rocketmoney.com/allsteelers. Shout out our boys over at Rocket Money. I still laugh every time I see myself non-shaved and go, wow, dude. Recorded that one a minute ago, my friend. It's all right. We're clean cut, looking good now. We're diving into Week 12, Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know what just struck this in my head, but that kind of sounded like I've been listening to the Matthew McConaughey book, and yeah, it took me. For those of you who don't know about it, for those of you who haven't read it,
Green Lights.
Yes, it took me all of like 6 minutes. The introduction is 6 minutes long. I'm a big audiobook guy, and in that 6-minute introduction, I realized he's the coolest human being to ever walk the planet.
100%. And that's it. That book is on my Christmas list. I'm more of a in my hands type of person, but I watched him with Burt Kreischer and Tom Segura, and immediately you're just like, I don't think there's anybody cooler than Matthew McConaughey in this planet, on this planet.
No, two things. So I watched that same podcast That's why I got into this book. I was like, oh, I got to read it now. And they share a glass of bourbon or something during that podcast. I was so starstruck by this podcast and by Matthew McConaughey that I left my house after watching it. It was, I don't know, 7 o'clock at night, 7:30 o'clock or 7:30 at night, something like that. Left my house immediately after the podcast ended, drove to the liquor store, bought a bottle of bourbon, came home and said, Jillian was like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm going to learn how to drink bourbon. That's what's going to happen. And I'm trying.
I appreciate it. But they were drinking tequila.
They were, but it would have been cooler.
It was Pantalones, which
it was, but it would have been way cooler as bourbon. And my thought is I could drink tequila.
I was hoping that you knew, because I was hoping you weren't picking up a hobby because you thought somebody was drinking bourbon when they were not drinking bourbon.
No, they were definitely drinking tequila, but I could drink tequila. I went to college, I know how to drink tequila. The bourbon is an adult thing, and I was never able to get into the bourbon. So I said, screw it. And as you
hurt yourself.
Yeah. Jillian was like, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, look it. I don't know what life has to throw at me, but I'm not going to say that it is impossible that one day I end up with the opportunity to drink a glass of bourbon with Matthew McConaughey. Okay. And until that door officially shuts, I will act as if it's open.
Okay.
And I will be prepared.
Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. I like
That's what I'm saying. If any of that ever happened, and I've met some crazy people in my life, you met
Snoop 3 weeks ago.
That's what I'm saying, dude. And that's that was a nonsense encounter. That barely counts. Like I've had conversations with Jerry Jones at a Starbucks one time. You know what I mean? Like I've seen some people, I've met some people. I'm not going to say that door is shut. And if the opportunity presents itself, I better not be sitting there looking soft. Like, just because that's what it's not. You can't hide that.
No.
And two, I better not be thinking about it the whole time going, man, this sucks. This is disgusting. I got to drink the rest of this. No, I better be. It's the second thing on my mind. First thing is locked in conversation, Matthew McConaughey. I'm just saying it's not impossible. Nothing is impossible. And I'm going to keep that door open until it closes. Keep that door open. So shout out. It is a fantastic book. Matthew McConaughey is the coolest. I won't wait. I won't ruin anything on you, but I will tell you that in 6 minutes, it is the introduction. He says, let me tell you some facts about myself. By the time he's done listing facts, you are 100% sold. Matthew McConaughey is the coolest human being to ever walk the planet ever. And he tells no stories, just tells you facts. It's crazy.
All right.
All right, let's dive into week 12. What's more likely? Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns. I'm excited for this one. What do we got?
Matthew McConaughey is cool, calm, and collected. Jameis Winston, on the other hand, not always in the pocket. So what's more likely? Jameis Winston throws 3 interceptions, which he did earlier this season against the LA Chargers, or Jameis Winston is sacked 5 times. Of course, the Cleveland Browns have averaged 3.6 sacks per game since Jameis took over as the starter.
Yeah, I said yesterday that TJ Watt getting 5 sacks isn't an overreaction, and I will stick by that. I think 3 interceptions is a lot of interceptions. It could happen, but the Steelers are not interception hungry this season. It's really just Beanie Bishop and Dante Jackson, and while those two can definitely get the job done, you're probably looking for more than that in a situation like this. Plus, it's going to be nasty and rainy and windy there as the sun shines through on me and ruins the lighting in my room. And I could see like nasty game, and the Steelers defensive line just wins that battle. I feel like what's more likely is the sacks. 5 sacks is not crazy to me in this game. It's just not. TJ Watt's got to be pissed off about the bulletin board material from Myles Garrett. Also, did you see PFF graded them? They graded each other, or they graded both of them, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
TJ Watt is, I'll give you the exact number here because I don't want to not do it justice. TJ Watt is 92.5 is his rating.
Okay.
Myles Garrett is 92.6.
All right, now. Not that we didn't already know, but come on now. Like,
I laughed so hard.
Slightly, a little bit of a vendetta there.
100%. I mean, you run the stats, 7.5 sacks. I'll just read off 2 lines here. 7.5 sacks, 36 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 18 quarterback hits, 4 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries. The other one has 7 sacks, 23 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 15 quarterback hits, and 2 forced fumbles. But if I had to guess, has some random made up stat that he is probably better in than TJ Watt, because Myles Garrett, that's it. Can do more of those weird, crazy, crunchy things where he like goes down.
Better Halloween costumes.
Oh, 100%.
It's adding up. It's adding up.
I get it. I see why they did it this time. I understand. I understand fully, actually. 5 sacks is could be nothing. TJ Watt could get 3 of them in this game and probably like piss on Myles Garrett in the process of it. So I'm gonna go 5 sacks. What's more likely? 5 sacks.
All right, let's go to specifically the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. What's more likely? Najee Harris gets his first 100-yard game since week 8, or George Pickens gets his first 100-yard game since week 7.
Pooh. This is a tough one. This is a tough one because it's going to be nasty. Okay. So you got to imagine that throwing the football is not going to be the easiest thing. Russ is on 2 games that he got away with the first one. Mm-hmm. The second one was not pretty, but George Pickens still had 90 yards in that second one. Najee Harris, I mean, you say since week 8, but I mean, you break that down. They had a bye week. Yeah. And they played the Ravens. And so really it's in 2 games, the last 2 games, he hasn't had 100 yards. That could be a thing. I gotta go. I gotta go Najee Harris. I feel better about Najee Harris just because of the elements and the situation and how they'll go about things. I mean, this is not going to be a Russell Wilson, welcome to the rivalry game. This is going to be hey, Mike Tomlin just wants to punch the Cleveland Browns in the face, and he will do so with Najee Harris. And if I had to guess, Najee gets more opportunities in this one. I would say plus a short week. They're going to run the football a lot to make sure that they're prepared. I'm going to go Najee, 100-yard game. The offensive line is going to bounce back from last week, and the passing game is going to be tough. But I think he gets close. But I would guess what's more likely is Najee Harris.
Now, this is the first pre-recorded episode of All Steelers Talk since the summertime. So because our friends in the chat aren't able to ask, I'll add it to this segment. What is more likely to happen first? Cole Holcomb makes a tackle, or Roman Wilson catches a pass for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Oh my gosh. People are going to lose it. They're going to be like, I can't believe I wasn't here for this one. Wow. Oh my gosh. Could you imagine all the people who've clicked off already? Who got here and said, all right, this episode's boring, I'm done. And they're missing out on this?
No, I think the McConaughey talk will keep people coming.
I might have shooed too many away with that one. I did a disservice to so many good people. Cole Holcomb records a tackle, or Roman Wilson catches a pass for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh gosh. I'm going to go Roman Wilson. Is it even promised that Cole Holcomb's ever going to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers again? I mean, like, you have to think he's in the plans. He's been here this long. Like, why would you not keep him around for the last year of his contract? But I mean, at the same time, like, there's no guarantee. There is such a slim guarantee that he does play for the Pittsburgh Steelers again, ever again. Roman Wilson's going to play next season. He's going to be part of the Steelers offense. If he stays healthy, he's going to get involved. He will be that guy. He will be looked at as wide receiver 3 ahead of Calvin Austin. Van Jefferson won't be around anymore. And then next to whoever they add in the offseason, because there's no chance that they aren't going to add somebody in the offseason. You got to go Roman Wilson in this one. I just think that it's such a non-guarantee that Cole Holcomb plays for the Steelers ever again. And it's guaranteed. I mean, Roman's got 4 years. And he's going to catch a pass eventually. If he doesn't, wild times. But if you gotta believe that he's going to.
All right, let's go back to tonight's game. What's more likely? Russell Wilson throws at least 2 touchdown passes, or Justin Fields runs for 1?
Justin Fields rushing for a touchdown. What's more likely? I mean, you could judge this one off of two sides here, your heart and your brain. And my brain tells me Russ. Obviously, that's a no-brainer. I mean, he even threw a touchdown. No, he didn't throw a touchdown against the Ravens, but 2 touchdowns against a Cleveland Browns defense that has not played great this season. You'd have to imagine that that's definitely a possibility. My heart tells me Justin Fields getting in the end zone this week because they're going to use him in the red. They're going to just add an extension to the Justin Fields game in this game after, starting it against Baltimore. Now you'll break it open a little bit more against Cleveland. Then you'll put it away and then you'll bring it out when you need to later in the year. I think this is two-sided. I think you could go, your brain tells you Russell Wilson throwing 2 touchdowns. Your heart tells you Justin Fields is about to score a touchdown in this one.
Yeah, and Taysom Hill definitely went all over the Cleveland Browns last week, so yes, you could see that being a little bit of deja vu for the Browns defense.
100%. And I mean, that guy is not fast and made fast people look slow. And that Justin Fields is fast and could probably make fast people look even slower if that's how the Cleveland Browns operate on defense.
We got one more what's more likely, and I want to preempt this one with a little bit of stats. We're going to stat that. Myles Garrett has 9 sacks in 12 games against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers have allowed the 12th most sacks allowed in the NFL this season. Meanwhile, TJ Watt has 17 sacks in 12 games against the Cleveland Browns. Browns have allowed the most sacks in the NFL this year with 46. So with that being said, Noah, what's more likely? Myles Garrett records 2 sacks on Russell Wilson, or TJ Watt records 3 sacks on Jameis Winston?
Oh, TJ Watt. TJ Watt with ease. Yeah, I mean, how many times? Russell Wilson was sacked 4 times last week, and it was like this big, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous moment. And the Baltimore Ravens were the best defense that the Steelers played all season long by a hefty margin. So, and that's like TJ Watt gets 2 sacks consistently. Like, this is a thing that happens numerous times throughout the season. Myles Garrett does not play relatively well against the Steelers all the time. He has his moments, certainly, like you said, 17 sacks against them. But there are moments where he goes ghost and there's nothing that's going on, and everybody's talking about Dan Moore being the guy that looks crazy good against Myles Garrett. That all happens too. I think Darnell Washington is going to be there every single play. I think Jaylen Warren's going to be used to stop him. Cordero Patterson's going to be used to stop him. There will be so much help on Myles Garrett. Meanwhile, the Browns are sitting around with no left tackle, possibly a guard starting at left tackle. You could bounce TJ around and make him take advantage of bad opportunities or bad lineups or bad mismatches and really, really go off. I mean, TJ Watt's with 3 is not the craziest thing in the world, and I would say TJ Watt getting 3 is realistic. Again, especially because bulletin board material is a real thing in the NFL, and he's got some right now.
Yeah, 17 sacks in 12 games is absolutely ridiculous from TJ Watt. The fact that he hasn't had a 3-sack game this season, at least on paper, he hasn't had one. We've seen it taken away from obvious calls in Atlanta, but he hasn't had a 3-sack game all season. It's a short week. The Steelers are feeling themselves right now, so I'm going to say that I would roll with that one as well, because TJ Watt, I felt it last week, and he had himself a good game. He only got 1 sack on record. That Loudermilk one he didn't even get a half on that. But I think that he'll actually get home a lot more against Jameis Winston, because Jameis just does not have that maneuverability that Lamar Jackson did. But I still see TJ Watt being the same guy he was on Sunday when he blew up the Ravens offensive line.
Yeah, I agree. There's just got a hard time saying TJ is going to be quiet in this one, because he seemingly is never quiet against the Cleveland Browns. All right, that's it for what's more likely. Week 12, Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns, which brings us to our picks, the best time of the week, and it comes early this week. But first, we got a quick word from our boys over at The Perfect Gene. 400,000. That's how many men have rescued their nuts from stiff, unforgiving jeans, all thanks to the perfect jean. These jeans have enough stretch to accommodate Thanksgiving dinner and are comfy enough to wear all day watching Sunday football. Plus, even though they feel like sweatpants, they look good enough to be your go-to pants for date night. The perfect jean has the perfect size for everybody, and we mean everybody. They've got 6 different fits, waists running from 26 to 50 and lengths from 26 to 38, which means there are over 5,000 possible combinations of pants for you to choose from. So if you're a short king or actually 6'5", if you love a loose fit or are still in your skinny jean era, or if you're bulking up or cutting down, the perfect jean is the perfect option for you. For a limited time, our listeners get 15% off their first order plus free shipping at theperfectjean.nyc, or Google The Perfect Jean and use our code ALLSteelers15 for 15% off. It's finally time to stop crushing your balls in uncomfortable jeans by going to theperfectjean.nyc. Our listeners get 15% off your first order plus free shipping, free returns, and free exchanges when you use code ALLSteelers15 at checkout. That's 15% off for new customers at theperfectjean.nyc with promo code ALLSteelers15. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Fuck your khakis and get the perfect jean. Shout out our boys over at The Perfect Jean. All right, we're diving into the best time of the week, and it comes early this week. The Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns. Week 12 is officially here. It's going to be snowy. It's going to be rainy. It's going to be nasty. This is going to be a good time. Second AFC North opponent in 2 weeks, and the game 3 of a back half that everybody said was going to be absolutely brutal and is shaping out well for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nick, I'm going to toss it to you. Our picks for week 12. Here we go.
Yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers getting a little bit of love from DraftKings Sportsbook. They are 3.5-point favorites against the 2-win Cleveland Browns. Nice to see them get a little bit of a respect there. But the over-under is back down this week at a meager 37 points.
Poof. 37 points is actually like that's a place I expect it to be, and I don't think I'll go over 37 points in this one. I look at it and say it's going to be gross, nasty, rainy, and the Pittsburgh Steelers might win like 20-0, but I have a hard time believing they're going to win 38-0. And I'm sorry, but I would not be surprised if Cleveland does not score in this ballgame.
Wow. So I mean,
no, that's not the prediction. But I'm just saying I wouldn't be.
You predicted a shutout once this year. Are you going back to the well?
I did. What was the game I predicted a shutout in? It was the Giants. Was the Giants.
I'm fairly certain it was the Giants.
Yeah, I was real wrong on that one. I did predict a win, but I did not see thought a shutout was coming. I'm going Pittsburgh Steelers. A win, a big win in this one. I don't expect it to be close at all. And I know this is the Cleveland Browns trap game, blah, blah, blah. I get it. I think the Steelers are hot right now. I think they're going to potentially lose next week to Cincy. But this week, I'm not ready to jump ship yet. I'm going Pittsburgh Steelers 23-24, 3 touchdowns, and you give Boz an easy day, but he definitely gets a field goal in there. 24-6. Pittsburgh Steelers. I just don't see it being close. I mean, Cleveland is Cleveland. I get it, but Jameis isn't part of this. If this was DTR, he's part of it. You know, he's a thing here, and Cleveland's going to come out hot. They're going to come out firing. They're going to come out looking to kick some ass. They're going to come out looking to wreck the Steelers' day. I get it. Russ just doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to let that happen. So, and he doesn't seem to be a guy that lets it happen. So I would say that the Steelers keep it together. They come out. They look real good. You know, it's a different narrative for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's time to start talking about how the Pittsburgh Steelers are that team that can, you know, they win games. That's what they do. They're winning games right now. And I think it's time to put a little bit of respect on the Steelers' name. So I'm going 24-6. In my gut, it tells me, oof, pal, being aggressive. Okay. But in my heart, it's telling me we're feeling pretty good about this one. And I'm making a lot of decisions with the heart this week. So we're going, that's what Matthew McConaughey would do. That's what Matthew McConaughey would make decisions with his heart, not his gut. Because of that, I'm going 24-6. Doesn't get you the over, but I don't think the over is going to hit in this one.
So Russell Wilson put out a hype video yesterday that almost had me acting out of character, because I saw that hype video and immediately I wrote down on my notepad, Steelers 40-5, something like that, because Russell Wilson's hype videos will get you doing that. But then I thought better of it. Then I thought, okay, AFC North, rain, sleet, and snow, probably all of the above, right next to the lake, in a venue that the Steelers have struggled in the last couple of years, 1-4 in their last 5 visits. So I don't think it's going to be that. Do I think the Steelers lose this one? No, I'm not going to come close to doing that. But I do think it is a tightly contested matchup. What I see is, and follow me here, I see a 16-10 game in favor of the Steelers and a late touchdown, because Jameis Winston has the chance to tie the game or take the lead. He messes it up. The Steelers defense steps up, and whether that be a defensive touchdown or Russell Wilson deciding that he wants to blow this wide open, I think the Steelers score a late touchdown to make this look like more of a laugher than it actually is, and the Steelers win this by a final score of 23-10.
23-10. Okay. You had me at 16-10. I was going, no, pal, that's not it. That's just not, that's too close. And it could be close, but I don't think it's going to be 16 at 16-10. You're talking about the offense is concerning. The offense isn't concerning. Not in my eyes. Not yet. 23-10. I appreciate that one. I think that's not a terrible score. The only difference, you're saying Jameis gets in there. I'm saying Jameis doesn't get close, pal. Saying Jameis doesn't get close. It's a good day to own. Although the Browns kicker stinks, apparently. And I only know that because I own him in fantasy football. And I thought he was on a bye last week because I checked and he had 0 points. And I said, what happened, dude? How'd you get here? How did you not score any points? Turns out he missed a bunch of field goals. So including like a 26-yarder, which you couldn't even give me one, dude. You couldn't give me 1 point. It was brutal. It was rough. Yeah. 23-10. I enjoy. I mean, I think the moral of the story here is hammer the under. Yes. And feel good about a Pittsburgh Steelers win, because I'm feeling it's just something about Jameis, man. That's what it is. Something about Jameis. Fun fact, this is the 5th quarterback that the Pittsburgh Steelers have faced in the Cleveland Browns rivalry since 2021. And it is the 4th quarterback the Steelers have sent out there in that same amount of time. That is wild. Yeah. It goes Baker, Deshaun, DTR, and Jacoby Brissett is the 4 there. Or no, there's one more in there.
And then Jameis.
Jameis will be the 5th. And then it is Ben Roethlisberger, Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph. No. And then Russell Wilson.
Mason and then Russ.
Was it Mason? Did Mason play the Browns last year?
Mason almost had his head decapitated, and I think that's been since 2021.
No, that was 2019. That was before.
Either way.
That was before 2021. But I guess, if you go back, they got a 5th in there as well. If you go to 2019, either way, wild times. You would not anticipate that being the case. But here we are, new chapter, Jameis versus Russ, and I'm feeling good about it. With that said, we got one question.
We do,
and I appreciate this question, because we said, hey, you got one, toss it in, just let know it's for Thursday. We got one person, and I mean, it's the little things that make me smile when it comes to all you guys. And this is one of the little things. So it's very appreciated. What do we got?
Yeah, you threw up the bat signal, and King Vibes responded in kind. He says, who on our defense isn't coming back next season besides Cameron Sutton? Defense will be very scary for the next few years.
So I won't rule out Cam Sutton not returning. I think that's definitely a possibility. Demonte KZ's on the final year of his deal. So is Cam Sutton. But I think Cam Sutton could play safety and corner, and that interests the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, I mean, let's be honest. Is he going to get a shot somewhere else? That's not guaranteed. The Steelers would welcome him back with open arms and say, hey, dude, you want to come here for cheap? Sounds good, dude. Sounds good to me. Demonte KZ is probably on that list. Who else? Dean Lowry is probably on that list. Preston Smith is probably on that list. Larry Ogunjobi could possibly be on this list. I think he is more of a question mark than the rest of the names that I have named so far, but he could be on this list. Dante Jackson could be on this list, but I think he is sitting there right with Larry Ogunjobi. Montravius Adams will most likely be on this list, and he's probably more of a probable than a possibly. Who else am I missing here?
I don't think
I'm missing anybody else. I think that would be the list. I would say the chances are they don't return are DeMonte KZ, and I think DeMonte KZ gets a job somewhere. If he doesn't, he could come back to Pittsburgh, but I think he gets a job somewhere. DeMonte KZ, Preston Smith, Montravius Adams, Dean Lowry, and then my possiblies are Larry Ogunjobi and Dante Jackson. And Landon Roberts could also be a possibly because he's a free agent as well. But he just strikes me as a Pittsburgh Steeler, man. Like, screw it. Let's retire. Let's get one more year in there. Let's retire. You know, I think that's a possibility. Those would be my answers. I think those would be 7 guys that they could lose, all replaceable in different variations, but all replaceable. I wouldn't put Cam Sutton on that list. I think he's a possibly, but I don't think I'd put him as a probably.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. And what you're saying there is essentially the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to have the foundation of their defense back again, and it's a matter of filling those holes. And we've seen, Omar Khan do that this year. I mean, you talk about Preston Smith, he filled a hole. You talk about, bringing in guys like Cameron Sutton who filled a hole. You talk about DeMonte KZ and Deshaun Elliott filling holes. So I think that you're going to be able to see Omar Khan go out and do a similar thing in free agency next year.
Yeah, I agree. And there will be names, and that will decide a lot of things. That'll decide Larry O. That'll decide Landon Roberts. That'll decide DeMonte KZ, Dante Jackson, all those guys. Can you replace them? How easily can you replace them? How big of a name can you replace them with? I think the NFL draft plays a part here because I would guess that they go out and get a defensive lineman early in the NFL draft. But I think the rest of it is open for negotiation. And I appreciate that question. With that said, we're heading into week 12, Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns. We appreciate everybody jumping on. I know it was pre-recorded. We haven't done one of these in a while, but it was what we needed to do to get you guys a podcast, and we will make sure that we always get you guys a podcast. We're heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work on si.com/NFL/Steelers. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 9:00 for a recap and reaction episode of the Pittsburgh Steelers versus Cleveland Brown game. For those of you who are going, safe travels. Get there. Stay warm. We'll see you tomorrow.